أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه من السنة بسم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters of Islam. Welcome to our Friday night halaqah, as always every Friday, with various different topics. Today our topic is about the issue of homosexuality and Islam, and how we as American Muslims can tackle or deal with this issue here in America, especially here in New Jersey. As many of you know, that the governor of New Jersey has passed a law, a bill, which is going to be effective from this fall, September, um, which will be that all the public schools will be teaching about homosexuality in the curriculum, in the syllabus in school, starting from kindergarten. So kids as young as 4 years old will be taught by their teachers in the school everything about LGBTQ and their rights and how they should accommodate them. So for that, inshallah, I have invited my dear friend and one of my early students of the Arabic language many years back, Sheikh Mobeen Vaid, who has kindly, with his busy schedule, accepted my invitation. He's joining us live from Maryland, Laurel Park area. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Mobeen. Welcome to the program.
Allah barakatuh. Sheikh Jawad, how's everything?
Alhamdulillah. I know you have a hard stop at 8 o'clock, so I will not waste further minutes and pass it on to you so you can go ahead and start, inshallah.
Okay, Allah, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I don't want to take up too much time on the underlying moral issues themselves. Given that this is a Friday night halaqah, I'm going to speak about this issue with an assumption that most people have an understanding of the Sharia on this issue, which is to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits any sexual acts that occur outside of marriage, right? And so whether those are premarital relations or extramarital relations, or certainly relations that occur between people of the same sex, that's all prohibited in Islam. And the Quran and Sunnah are quite explicit and clear about all of this. Certainly on the question of homosexuality itself, one need only look at the story of the people of Lut alayhi salam and Lut alayhi salam's own story with his people. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I think the question here today is, as Muslims, how do we deal with these types of situations now that we see given the fact that what we're witnessing today is really profound and significant growth in a variety of different trends that have occurred, I'd say, especially and accelerated, especially in the past 5, 10, maybe 20 years or so. And I'll mention a couple of them, and then I'll get to the issue of schools after that. The ones that have really been picking up ever since the 90s relates to media and culture. And so we've seen a rise in the media representations of gay affirmative media. So news reports, TV shows, movies, books, billboards, music, right? More and more artists who come out of the closet. This has been going on for some time. There's nothing new. One of the things that's also occurred as part of the broader culture is an encouragement for younger people to question and test out their sexuality and their gender. And so that's taking place, that's been going on for a while. Today, hardly a week passes except that one finds an actress, an athlete, some media icon that's identifying as a different sex or a different gender, or just coming out of the closet sexually. It is a sort of public euphoric experience. We've also seen these transitions increasingly, certainly the cultural program increasingly targeting children. If you have followed, for instance, the news around kids shows like SpongeBob, Sesame Street, Cartoon Network, they've all sort of moved along pretty strong. And so these are trends to be aware of. And it's not just the culture around us, right? This is not just things that are happening outside in our culture and our society, and we're not being affected ourselves. if you look at statistics that relate to young people, for instance, and even older people, and shifts in attitudes, the way people think about these issues, it's had a significant effect. There was a recent study by J. Walter Thompson's Innovation Group, or the J. Walter Thompson Innovation Group study, where they said people between the ages, or they found that people between the ages of 13 and 20, among them, 48% identified as exclusively heterosexual, which is to say that over half of all people between 13 and 20 that were polled said that they were either gay or lesbian or something else, but they were not exclusively attracted to people of the opposite sex. And you have to realize that is an all-time high for those numbers. And traditionally, they've always been up closer to 80-90% of people who identify as exclusive. And this is just on studies. If you look at GLAAD, which is a LGBT advocacy organization, in their 2017 report, they found that 20% of millennials identified as LGBTQ explicitly. We've also seen more and more young people now that are struggling with their own gender and their own gender identity. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? What does gender mean? Should I consider becoming the opposite gender? And if so, what should I do as part of that? Where can I find support and everything else? And so these are major, major social and cultural trends that are taking place, that have been taking place now for the better part of the past 2 to 3 decades. Certainly the last decade is where we've seen the T in the LGBT, which is transgenderism, and that piece has really picked up. Now, where that's significant for us is a number of things. We've had a variety of legislation that's been passed, some as high as the Supreme Court, that has come in to preserve a variety of rights for LGBT persons in employment and things like that. But alongside all of that, you also now have legislation that's being considered. It's highly debatable. Allah knows whether or not it's ever going to make progress. But you have one piece of legislation called the Equality Act, which, if the Equality Act is passed, the Equality Act really prioritizes the notion of transgenderism, so gender identity and homosexuality, as being the equivalent of race legally and socially. And it actually says in the legislation that the Equality Act would trump religious freedom protections. So it would supersede it, which would be very, very potentially quite devastating for religious communities that are unwilling to affirm all of these things morally and are going to continue teaching their own beliefs and values. And certainly this is a challenge for us as Muslims, given our beliefs and values on these issues. And that's a big one, the Equality Act. In addition to that, we're seeing more legislation and changes done at the state level. As Sheikh Jawad told me, this was New Jersey. I believe it happened last year. Where you had local legislation that was passed for this school year, right now, 2020, 2021, to integrate into school curricula LGBT studies. Now, exactly where all of that's been integrated in, it's always a question. Often there is a push to integrate this into history classes. And so the idea is to teach LGBT history as a civil rights struggle, the same way that a child might learn about racial justice or other rights struggles that people have gone through historically. They teach it the same way. And so young people are growing up and they're learning about gay, lesbian, transgender icons and people who are looked at and admired, right? These are potential role models to look up to. Obviously, this is also something that is taught in courses related to sexual education and things like that. In public school, the curriculum is the curriculum, right? As parents, this is often, sexual education typically has an opt-out component to it, where parents can opt out their children from studying that subject. When it's integrated into other courses, there really is no opt-out provision. It's just there as part of the ongoing teaching. And frankly, even when the opt-out option is there, the vast majority of parents don't look, are not kept informed, don't appreciate what's being taught, and many of them are uncomfortable with the idea that their child is going to be looked at differently. And most children at that age don't want to be looked at differently. They don't want to be the one kid who has to leave the classroom when everyone else is just doing regular studies. And so now they're put in a position where they're going to be alienated from the rest of their classmates. They could easily be made fun of or bullied or mocked because they're not sitting in this. And so they come to also resent their parents for not wanting them to study these subjects. And so it's a very thorny issue, especially when it gets pushed down this road. We also see it being integrated more and more in the books that end up getting assigned and the books that are populating the libraries themselves in schools. And so you have more and more schools now, even young elementary schools, where, the kids who are young, the books that they're going to be seeing and the books that they're going to be reading are going to have either explicit or sometimes very subtle implicit messaging on topics like this. And so these are issues that as Muslims we have to know about, right? These are topics that are very much trying to targeting our children in various ways and getting them to reconfigure their morals and their values. And once that happens, Islam is looked at as being something that is backwards. They don't see their religion as something that has that is really rigorous. They might look at it as something that's bigoted or hateful, right? And then you're in a very tough position because you have someone who is very stridently and confidently anti, or pro homosexuality, pro transgenderism, pro all this type of stuff, and they're sitting looking at a religion that doesn't accept those things morally. And now you're sort of working back upstream in a very, very dangerous situation when it comes to their own iman as Muslims. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I know perhaps I figured we could have some questions, maybe open things up a little bit here.
Yes, definitely, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam, brother Mudassir. Sister Fatiha, and Islam, sister. So, brothers and sisters, if you have any question, please type it in the comment box over here on the YouTube on the bottom, and so we can answer that question. One question I would ask is that how can parents kind of brief or debrief the child at home before they go to school in September? Because like you mentioned, the opt-out option, it's not there in New Jersey. I believe they're going the other route, like put it in the history class or something else. Yeah. So obviously children are going to come home and they're going to say, mommy, we can have two mommies or we can have two daddies. So imagine a kindergarten child or a first grader talking to their mommy that why don't we have two dads?
Yeah. Or, many of these books are that. Many of the books are about, especially young books about a young boy who enjoys wearing dresses and he wants to be a ballerina when he grows up, and he wants to change his name. They'll make it like a celebration story about this young boy, and he participates in that. They'll try to do this. They'll push the envelope with some of those types of books as well. When it comes to, a lot of times they'll do this with pictorial books and books with different animals, right? And so penguins and frogs, books that look very cute on the cover, but have these types of stories within them. I think for parents, we have to be very concerned about it. It's really tough to inoculate your child fully from all of this, especially in a public school setting these days, given just how ubiquitous and far-reaching all of this is. Most kids who are very young are not sort of mentally mature enough to start dealing with a lot of these issues, and yet schools are sort of pushing it down them. I'd say that if we're thinking about how parents can, especially at younger ages, address some of these issues, my advice would be to look at, especially Christian groups. Conservative Christian groups have built out literature on these topics, and they'll just talk about the importance of family, the importance of a mom and a dad, these types of things. They've done a lot more on this than we have as Muslims. And so, usually when it's that type of messaging, we're not really having any, we're not talking about, does Allah have a son or something like that, right? The types of issues that would really be a point of conflict for us, these types of issues are much easier for us to look at and try to review what they have produced and see whether or not their productions are useful for us. So I'd say definitely take a look at that. I think longer term, I think Muslims have to consider their, because a lot of these trends are not easing up, they're steadily becoming intensified. And the more intensified they become, the less one is able to actually avoid it. And at some point, your child in school, when they're there, you know, literally, right, that's the majority of their day, every day, for how many years? For how many years of their lives? This is going to be the majority of the day. For the majority of the year, they spend more time at school than they do with their parents. They do. Right. Most of them spend far more time.
It's indoctrination. They get indoctrinated over there.
Of course, right? I mean, the idea that, you know, we can try to recover this with what, you know, how long do parents speak to their children in the evenings? The kids come home, you know, they might come home before their parents. They go out to play. They may not go out to play. They just play video games. They're on their own. They're in their own room. They have their own phones. They're on their own computers and all that. And, you know, parents come home. Maybe they eat together. Maybe they don't. They do some homework. They go to sleep. And you don't really end up having families today that have a lot of active discussion. The idea that you as a parent can sort of take that time that is so limited and overcome the, you know, hours and hours in the day that they're spending amongst their friends and their teachers and everyone else. And all of that is reinforcing constantly something that runs counter to your own values as a parent, I think is difficult as a proposition. I don't know how successful one can be. And especially when that's you know, look, it's not like other issues, right? I mean, you can have a kid who grows up, for instance, and he has friends, and those friends drink alcohol. Let's just give that as an example, right? The schools are not teaching your kids to drink alcohol. You're not getting books for children about, you know, this thing likes to, or this animal and this like to drink alcohol, and it's so great. You don't have classes that have alcohol consumption as part of their curriculum. You don't have media and television, all this type of stuff. You don't have marches with it. I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's a very, very big thing in some ways. And so alcohol is sort of seen as a recreational activity that people do, but most people recognize that not drinking alcohol is healthier, it's better for a person in some ways. For a person who's growing up here and doesn't drink, their sort of notion of right and wrong, the idea that I'm not doing something, I'm not signing up for something that is actually good and helpful, is not being contested through not drinking, right? It is being contested on this issue in a very different way, right? It is, because on these issues, it's like, okay, if you're not in favor of two men having an intimate romantic relationship, and then that is exactly the same as a man and a woman, well, you know, that's a hateful belief. And people won't say that, well, if you just think drinking is wrong, you're just like a hateful person. No one really cares about something like that. Certainly not the same way. And so, you know, I think to some degree, Muslims have to really organize around alternatives to this. And that means financially contributing, obviously, to the development of Islamic schools seriously. I think that's a major area of investment that as Muslims we need to.
But you know, Brother Mobeen, not everybody can afford Islamic school education.
Of course.
You know, well, the high fees and everything.
Oh, no question. Well, and that's why, you know, ideally, if the community contributes more to it than individuals, students, you know, there's ways where individual students who can't afford it. Alternatively, you know, I know not everyone can do homeschooling, right? Homeschooling becomes an option as well. I mean, people have to consider it, right?
What do you do with your kids?
My kids are homeschooled. And so,
MashaAllah, lucky them. Yeah. So, you know, that's another option, right? But not every parent can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people make sacrifices in their lives. You know, there are other religious communities where you see people where schooling is taken very, very seriously, and the types of sacrifices that parents have to make and families have to make in order to ensure that schooling aligns with their values becomes a high priority for them. You see this a lot, for instance, in the Mormon community. You see it even with religious Jewish people and religious Jewish communities. It just depends, right? So it's not just Muslims. Right? Other people have these types of issues, and when they do, they sacrifice for it, right? They really sacrifice for it. They try to make a means by which their children can get educated. And you know, the good thing is, look, public schools, depending on the state and county, they're not. Some of them are just kind of okay. Most of them are kind of okay. It's very, and people say, oh, we have the best public school county in the state, or whatever. You know, most schools are okay. You know, that's kind of where they
So
are.
let me ask you this: where should the parents start at home to debrief the child? Should they start off with the story of Lut alayhi salam and talk to them how Prophet Lot came and, you know, the people were there? But that doesn't really go for the long way.
It's easiest when the child is young, because you can just talk about family and, you know, just a dad and a mom, and you can teach it in a way that's very, very innocent and sort of that thing.
But would it be politically correct, though, given the current law? Would it be politically correct to talk about
teach your children? Yeah, I mean, so what? I mean, if it's not political, if Islam's not politically correct, you're still going to have to teach it to your kids, right? So at the end of the day, if it's not politically correct, there's only so much you can do, right?
Right.
And so there's that. But you know,
what if the child comes home from the school after learning in the class that it's okay to be a girl and he's a boy? So he says I want to have a girl's dress and wear a hairband and ponytail. How do parents deal with that?
Yeah, that's a very, very complicated issue. It really is. And I'll tell you, once that situation occurs, it is not like other situations. It's not like, oh, I could just yell at this kid, and then it can get very complicated very quick.
So they have to talk to them and counsel them, like in a.
But the issue is that most counselors, for instance, would not be supportive of countering what the child's saying. Most of them would try to affirm it and encourage it. So, what counselor can you go to, for instance?
Muslim counselor, maybe.
Potentially. I mean, how many Muslim counselors deal with these issues? And you know that. I hope, you know, if you guys have like a good Muslim counselor in your community that could help with that.
We got a question here from a sister. She says, how can we prevent our children from participating in or attending these classes?
Again, it's tough. I mean, if there's no opt-out option from the classes, then you don't know where it's being integrated in the curriculum. And if you don't know where it's being integrated in the curriculum, there's really no.
Well, I think they can talk to their school administration that if there is no opt-out option, but let's say it's integrated into the history chapter. Yeah. So maybe they can request the school administration to exempt the child from that chapter in the history class when they're teaching that. Like maybe they can send him to the library or something.
Potentially. I mean, it's very tough because these things are so spread out. You know, if you're learning history, it's not just that module. There's going to be exams, quizzes, there's going to be pre-work. I mean, who knows how much they're going to be teaching about this? Who knows if it's in English? Who knows how many different classes it's in? Who knows when teachers are just going to impromptu talk about it, right? I mean, there's no way, realistically speaking, once your schools are authorized to teach and talk about this, there's no way to confine it to say, hey, it's only like these 3 days a year that this is being done. No,
what is the philosophy behind this? Why are the states, forcing the schools to teach this? Is there a background philosophy behind this thing? Like,
yeah, I mean, this is unfortunately what has happened over the last couple of years. Is just that the activist currents have become a lot more aggressive, and part of it is that, you know, there is a conflation between people who have moral reservations or concerns with homosexual acts and transgenderism as being hateful, right? And so that narrative of hate, once you say, okay, our society tolerates X% of people who subscribe to hateful views, it's our responsibility as people to try to move them from hate to love, right?
Is it a hate crime if you say something against them?
It's not a hate crime. I don't know where it would be a hate crime, but certainly it would be, I don't know.
Hate speech. Would it be hate speech?
But it might be construed as that. I don't think that it's not like hate speech in a legal sense, but people would look at you as a hateful person, and they'd look at you as a discriminatory person. They'd look at you as a backwards person. And so, you know, I think if there are concerns, certainly I would encourage parents to talk to their schools and children anyways, or their teachers anyways, and to express concerns about these things. I think it's important. I would definitely look for like-minded Christian groups. Look, Yeah, in New Jersey.
Jewish groups also, right?
Yeah, they're fewer. They're fewer in number, just because they're smaller population. Actually, you're right. In Jersey, you guys probably have a bigger Jewish population there than we do in Maryland, and so that's actually a good.
So what do we do with those Christian groups or Jewish groups? What do you advise us to
do? I would. Well, first of all, I would reach out to them, express concerns about legislation like what's happened in the schools, and say we want to understand what have you done, right, for your own communities. How do you approach these types of issues for your parents? And I think you'll find that they're probably much more informed than most Muslims are on this. The reason being is that most Muslims who are politically active don't take these types of issues on. And unfortunately, many Muslims that are politically active are pro-LGBT. They have no concerns about any of this stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, many of them that do are. And so this becomes an issue for us where we don't really have a voice in these types of areas. Certainly not from our community that's trying to stand up and represent our views and values as Muslims who believe in the Quran and Sunnah. Like that type of commitment is not represented regularly. But and I would reach out to other Muslim communities as well in New Jersey. It's important. I mean, coalition building and things like that, having broad-based networks, recognizing what others are doing. There are many Christian and Jewish groups I think you'll find, especially in Jersey, that are very much against them. And inshallah, and I think you'll find that many of them have done work on these issues, and they'll talk about, what options do they offer to their parents? What have they done, right? And these are areas where I think bridge building should come to us very naturally. And whatever our differences are, which are significant on other issues, on this issue, we're very much aligned in trying to uphold the importance of, the naturalness and the moral correctness of a relationship between a husband and a wife and a family and children, and that structure of family being something that is essential to faith and deen and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what I would do. And it's so important, especially now, given just the sheer degree of confusion that our children have. The sort of level at which you are taking a gamble and rolling the dice on these type of things with your children, given just how big it's growing. I think a lot of parents don't realize how widespread all of this is.
Right. You know what? Our children, I'm worried about our children when they grow up and they become parents, like my and your children, when they are parents, and their kids, what are they going to deal with by that time? I mean, where's the world going?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably go in our graves and be sleeping over there, but leaving behind our grandchildren in such a dangerous scenario. I mean, it's very, very disturbing.
No, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide our children and protect them. Allah protect them. I mean, these are the types of issues. And alhamdulillah, you guys in your masjid and your community are discussing this. This is, mashallah, a really good thing. It's a tough issue. A lot of young people are, today, I mean, a lot of young Muslims aren't, they would find this to be a very, they probably, chafe at a discussion like this.
Right. Like you said, many are pro also. So they say there's nothing wrong with this.
But at the end of the day, this is Quran and Sunnah. I mean, that's all we're talking about here.
Exactly.
And we're trying to preserve Islam. I mean, this is not an issue where we say, if you're this madhab or that madhab, you're going to have a different. No, I mean, this is just Islam. This is Islam. That's what it is. It's ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura. This is from the essential things that are known of the religion by necessity.
And all the school of thought agree on this. There's no difference.
There's nothing there. And so, if we can't stand and try to uphold things that are that just, pivotal and uncontroversial in our religion, when are we going to try to stand up to preserve our religion, right? When are we actually going to start talking about this? Are we going to talk about it when our kids are already gone on half these issues, right? So Allah knows best. In any event, Sheikh, I actually have to go for.
Yes, I know you have a hard stop. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for taking time out. And inshallah, we hope you come back again soon sometime and we continue.
Inshallah, definitely.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. So, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, one of the things that we can do, like the Sheikh Mobeen Vaid said, is connect with our Christian brothers and sisters of the Christian faith, like contact the church groups, and also with Jewish brothers and sisters of the Jewish faith, contact there. synagogues and their groups and band together to raise awareness and a voice about this, especially with the school system. We, the Muslim parents and the Christian parents and the Jewish parents, we all got to come together and then rally towards the school to give an option to us parents opt out. In New Jersey, there are certain groups that are mobilizing their citizens to do a signature drive to send it to the governor, Phil Murphy, to insert an opt-out option in the bill, in the law, so that then the state can say that, okay, those parents who don't want their children to learn about homosexuality or LGBTQ as per se, they can sign a waiver. It's a waiver form that you have to sign as a father or mother and then submit it, so that when the class happens in the school system, all those students whose parents have signed waiver, they'll pull them out of the class and they'll put them maybe in the library or maybe in the gym, give them something else. So this opt-out version is being circulated in New Jersey by many groups. So for that, one of the things that we need to do, especially us here in Bud Lake, in Mount Olive, on Monday, March 22nd, please remember that, Monday, March 22nd, the Board of Education in Mount Olive is having a hearing. We have to show up over there as Muslim parents. I got a call at the masjid from a Christian group. The lady, the secretary, I forget her name, Melinda or someone, she called and she said, Imam, you need to get your community at that meeting at the Board of Education. They're having a hearing on Monday, March 22nd. You can Google search. I don't remember the exact time. Just type in Google search Monday, March 22nd, Board of Education, Mount Olive hearing for bill number 4455. That's what the bill is called, 4455, for the LGBTQ curriculum and syllabus. So we need to show up at the hearing as parents and voice our opinion that we don't want our children to learn about this in the school. So please provide us with an opt-out option. So when the school board system will see that there's so many parents asking for an opt-out version, then they will provide that. Right now, this looks the most easiest way to save our children from learning about homosexuality in the school from kindergarten, the opt-out version. If we become unsuccessful from the opt-out version, then from September, every child will have to study. And then at that moment, the only thing probably we can do as parents is talk to the principal of the school and maybe ask them that, in the chapter that you'll be teaching about this, send my son or daughter or kid to the library at that time or something like that. But the most easiest and the best way is to do the opt-out version. But for that, we have to show up on Monday, March 22nd. And besides that, join many of these groups. I will be sending, inshallah, in the WhatsApp group, the name of this coalition group that is being formed in New Jersey. And they have certain meetings. So at the next meeting, inshallah, we can show up over there. We can meet with other Christian parents. And in fact, this will be a good collaboration with the other faiths, parents of other faiths. They can be, okay, sister has said, okay, great. Thank you, sister, for finding that out. So the meeting at 6:30, okay, Monday, March 22nd, 6:30 at the Board of Education office. The Board of Education office is on Route 206. If you go to Route 206, it's a big building on the right side. Right after the ShopRite. So if you cross the ShopRite on 206 going northbound, on the right side, you'll have the Board of Education building. So make sure you show up over there before 6:30, like around 6:15. Anyone, either the father or the mother, or both of you, brothers and sisters, can show up over there. And let us go and talk to the Board of Education of Mount Olive and let them know that we don't want our elementary school kids, our kindergartens and others learning about this. Give us an opt-out option. Give us a way out, because we are a faith-based group. We are a religious organization. Our religion stops us from, teaching this. and therefore we have to preserve our religious values. Just like they are fighting for their values, we need to fight up for our values. We need to get up and stand up for our rights, and we have to fight for our religious values. And our religious values is that we don't want to teach about these things to our children. Let that parenting aspect remain with parents. Why is the school becoming a parent? Why is the school trying to teach these things which a parent can discuss with their child and let them know? So as religious values, they are being hurt for us if this curriculum is taught, and that is the opinion that we can voice. So Jazakallah khair for all of you for tuning in today. It's a very important topic and subject, and I was working on this for a long time. Luckily, we got our Sheikh Mobeen to come in, and inshallah, we will try to address this issue furthermore by inviting some other guest speakers in our Friday night halaqah. Until next Friday, inshallah, next Friday again, 7:30, we'll be back with another halaqah on Friday night and continue. Inshallah, we'll make dua for tonight so that we can end this program. And I would like to thank again Sheikh Mobeen that he came in today and helped us out. And I would like to thank all of you for participating. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, click the subscription button, and share this video with other parents. Maybe a lot of parents do not know about this in New Jersey and are not even aware that September their child will start learning. So therefore, we need to publicize about this. So one of the ways you can do is share this video. Just copy and paste the link with your friends and family in WhatsApp and messages, and they can watch this video also and find out in their community, in their society, where the Board of Education is having hearing and where they can go and meet. So inshallah, we need to raise awareness about this as a Muslim community. Unless and until we raise awareness for this, it will not really help anyone. So Jazakallah khair, inshallah. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Inshallah, we'll make dua. Allahumma anta salam minka salam tabarakta rabbana wa ta'alita ya zal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma taqabbal minna innaka anta samiu alim wa tub alayna mawlana innaka anta tawwabur rahim. اللهم انك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الابرار واحفظنا بالصالحين يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظ اولادنا من كل الشر والشرور يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظ اولادنا من السيئات يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظنا واحفظ عائلاتنا من كل شر والشرور والسيئات يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظنا واحفظ عائلاتنا من كل فتنة وفساد في هذا البلد يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah, the most protector, the most cure, and the most protector, protect us from all kind of fitna and fasad in this society. Oh Allah, protect our children from every kind of evil and sinful things, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, protect our children from all kinds of kharafat and sayyat, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, guide us and guide our children to Sirat al-Mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us and guide our children to what you love and what you like, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, accept our efforts, whatever we do for the sake of your deen. Oh Allah, accept our efforts to protect and preserve our iman, our faith in our hearts, in our souls, in our families, in our children. Oh Allah, help us to protect our children from all kind of fitna and fasad and sayyat, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu fi khalqi Muhammad sallallahu wa ala alihi wa sahbihi rahmatir rahimin. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illallah nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.